It's only 6 missions. How bad can it be? Turns out, very. Hi, I'm Amon, and I tried beating the Warcraft 3 Alliance campaign without building anything. That means no building buildings, no building units, and no recruiting mercenaries. What I start the level with is all I'm going to get. And of course, I have to play on the hardest difficulty. I thought now that I don't have to fight any Naga after the Sentinels campaign, my life is going to be a lot easier. I could not have been more wrong. But let's start with an easier warm-up mission first, before the real suffering starts. The first level needs us to repair some towers so we can see enemies from further away, I guess. We start the level with a no-build segment where I have to micro my way past a couple of enemies. We gain gold for each of the enemies killed, so I made sure I go the extra miles with genociding them because the gold will be important later. I also found a cache with some extra lumber bundles, which will be used to repair the towers. Then I arrived at the open sea and I was given 2 boats by the friendly Naga witch, so I didn't have to buy them.
What do I owe you? Nothing. It's for free. Free!
And upon arriving to the place I was supposed to build my base at, I found nothing. So I guess that's it then. I already lost and it's only level 1. Well, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next... But wait! What is that? Wait, is that Bob the Builder? Turns out Bob was with us since the level started, and he has been slowly but surely repairing his tower while I was committing mass creep extinction. And since I had enough resources in the bank, I started repairing the middle tower as well. And since I knew this is going to take ages, I went around the map, hunting some more creeps and getting some good items in, and suddenly Bob was done with repairing. And guess what the tower revealed? An undead base, right next to the tower. Well, turns out the enemy AI activates only after you've built your first building, by picking up the tiny building item and placing it on the ground. If I don't do that, turns out the enemy will just keep on sleeping. So we went to the final island where we brought the gnoll population to extinction. However, there was a massive gnoll force defending the last tower. And they are led by a gnoll who is freaking level 11. I didn't even know you were allowed to reach such high levels. Thankfully, my hero's flame ability can take down trees, so I took down the trees to the south and I snuck Bob the Builder behind the tower to start repairing it right under their noses. They not only came from behind, they repaired from behind.
They came from behind.
Left of the tower, there is still another cache guarded by a couple of golems. And these guys don't mess around. They will kill you in seconds. So I went in and I tried to just collect the items and get out. But they killed me, so I reloaded and seconds later, for some inexplicable reason, I won. Bob the Builder repaired the tower, despite usually needing several minutes to repair a tower. So I went back to check what the hell is going on. And turns out, after a reload, Bob goes into overdrive and starts repairing like a madman. I literally had to stop him from fully repairing the tower. Like, how does this even happen? Okay, actually I know how. Reforged. Anyways, now I just needed to collect some items for the next mission, so I finally got past the golems, which gave me a couple of healing wards. I made a couple of ogres in the south quite mad, and I went to the shop to the middle of the map to buy a couple of items. Most notably, a couple of scrolls of town portal and some invisibility potions. When I was done, I allowed Bob to repair the tower and that was it. Time for the real suffering to start. I started the next level with the realization that I removed the free town portal scrolls I bought on the last level from my inventory. Those bastards.
Damn you.
Thankfully, there is a shop to the north of my base, so I quickly went there to buy 2 town portal scrolls because they are going to be my only way to move around the map. The level starts with me in the middle island and 4 mini bases to the north and south being attacked by the undead. And the reason why I need the town portal scrolls is because the level doesn't start me off with a transport boat. and I can't get one because I'm not allowed to hire units. So before I get attacked, I brought a couple of units that are around those mini bases to the edge of the map. I teleported first up with all my units and workers from the middle to pick them up. And then I teleported to the bottom right town hall where I was going to make my last stand. The enemy attacks with a bunch of units, but I had a bunch of workers ready to repair my frontline towers, and I had a bunch of healing scrolls and potions ready just in case I'm gonna be needing them. But before this epic clash, let's talk about the mechanics of this mission. There are two mission phases. The first one is where your bases get attacked, and after they are destroyed, the second phase triggers, where the enemy has two more fully built bases to the north and south, and they constantly bombard you with units and attack waves, making this level one of the hardest levels in the entire game. However, the actual goal of the mission is to destroy the green base. Oh, and FYI, this one already exists during phase 1. Now, where were we? Ah yes, the attack wave. The enemies attack with a huge force, but with some good macroing and positioning, I managed to survive with my hero and 5 other units. However, there is a twist here. The developers built an anti-cheese mechanic where if the attack wave is killed, the second phase of the level starts, and you will start getting pounded from 3 sides. So how do you combat this anti-cheese mechanic? With cheese. A lot of cheese. The mechanic clearly states that if the attack wave dies, the second phase starts. But what would happen if the attack wave never dies? Well, at least not fully. Turns out there are a couple of meat wagons in this attack wave, and these guys are siege units with a minimum range, which means they can't attack anything under that range. So what would happen if I, for whatever reason, put a bunch of workers next to one of the meat wagons on hold position? Well, phase 1 will never end. And now that I managed to cheese this part, I thought the hard part was over. Little did I know, this mission would turn into the longest Warcraft 3 mission I have ever played. The green base has formidable defenses, but I thought since they don't build any units and I was playing against the undead and they don't have any healing, I would just use my flame strike abilities and poke the enemies with it, and they would drop dead after a while. Well, turns out there are a couple of problems with that plan. The first problem is called a Doom Guard, who is guarding the enemy base entrance. And Mr. Doom Guard has a cripple ability which slows me down to Kingdom Come. And the second I enter the enemy base, the defenders in the base will start chasing after me like there is no tomorrow. And my mana regen is honestly pretty pathetic. So I felt like this would take forever unless I have a couple of perfect shots. And also, since the base is on a high ground, I have to enter the base and gain vision to use my ability. So I put my serious face on and I restarted the level, looking for a better fight in the lower corner base. The main goal here was to keep my 2 starting Dragonhawk riders alive at all costs, because they would be able to provide me with high ground vision and extremely solid anti-air. Anything else that survives is going to be very welcome indeed. So I prayed to the god of micro and the god of pathing, and I managed to survive with a whopping 27 supply out of my starting 37. The units I managed to survive was my hero, 3 priests, 2 sorceresses, 2 archers, and my 2 Dragonhawk riders. I could have given them names, to be honest, since I was going to spend the next 5 hours watching them. I repeat, 5 hours. After that, I blocked the meat wagon again, and it was time for round 2 at the green base. Fun fact, you can prevent phase 2 by also attacking and repairing the castle in your main base. But since I had no transportation method other than a Scroll of Town portal, I had to resort to this. I decided that my first priority was to get rid of the Doom Guard and his cripple. So after putting a couple of hits in and retreating back, and doing that a couple of times, he was down. There is a sentence I love repeating in all my no production videos. This isn't a deathless run, but any unit I lose reduces my maximum damage output. So despite that, I made sure I don't lose any of my units. Then I started provoking the defenders to come out and follow me, and I was hitting them with a bunch of spells and abilities while they were coming after me. After a couple of these provocations, I already killed a bunch of their units, especially their gargoyles, so I was sure the enemy doesn't have any anti-air anymore, and I would be able to attack them directly since the enemy spiders don't have web researched in phase 1 yet. And to my surprise, the enemy base was still full of gargoyles. Since the enemy doesn't send any attack waves, I thought they don't produce anything at all. Boy, was I wrong. In fact, they produce a bunch of stuff. Turns out there are several units the enemy rebuilds, and those are Crypt Fiends, Gargoyles, Abominations, Frostworms, and their Dreadlord hero. So all these guys will be replaced after they are killed. On the other hand, the enemy ghouls, meat wagons, destroyers, and doom guards aren't being rebuilt, so I made sure to target those in my following attempts, to take out at least something. The destroyers in particular were really hard to catch, cause they are really beefy and are usually surrounded by a bunch of gargoyles. After killing everything I could, it was time to focus on the buildings. The enemy thankfully doesn't rebuild them, so any building killed is permanent. That being said, the enemy still repairs their buildings, and their acolytes are rebuilt as well. And unfortunately, my units don't do even remotely enough damage to buildings to take them out. So the acolytes will always be able to out-repair them. I even tried attacking the other side of the base with one of my flyers to distract the defenders. But there wasn't even remotely enough time to take out a single tower. So we were at a standstill. The enemy doesn't attack me and I can't bust through their defenses. So it was time for some out-of-the-box thinking. I decided to try and attack from the north, since the enemy base seems more open in the north. Unfortunately, I still had no way of transporting myself there. So I decided to walk there. I used my sorceresses and turned all my units invisible, and we went to the other side. My sorceress will lose stealth if it uses her cast invisibility ability, so unfortunately one of them had to stay behind. In the north there was still one destroyer left, so I wanted to bait him with my flyers. And this is where I found that when you provoke the enemy units, they will start going after you as fast as possible. And for the flyers, it's a direct route, but for the land defenders, they had to take the scenic route. So I was able to take out the flyers before the enemy ground units ever arrived. And since they did arrive, they didn't have any air support and they were in a bit of a disarray. So I was able to do some solid damage to them. Now I was confident enough that I would be able to bust through the north entrance if I'm fast enough. I couldn't have been more wrong. The enemy still has a bunch of abominations and these guys are insanely difficult to kill, especially when you do little to no damage with your units. And of course the enemy hero also loves to drop in and call down an inferno to completely ruin my day. Even if I think I can somehow handle the abominations, he takes literal ages to kill and is so freaking annoying in general. But then something short of a Warcraft 3 miracle happened. For whatever reason, the enemy hero and an abomination decided to use their airship to get to the middle island and attack a random house. The miracle part isn't them attacking a random building, that's just a weird reforged part. The miracle part includes the AI soon realizing that they made a very stupid decision and decided to send an airship to bring them to their base. But what if somebody were to, for example, target the transport ship trying to pick them up with 2 Dragonhawk riders? That would effectively leave them stranded on the island, unable to do anything but watch their friends get slaughtered. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't a walk in the park. The enemy keeps building and sending ships there all the time, and my window of time is pretty tight to take it down without the ship dying over open water, where the hero inside will die and then get revived after that. But this was definitely a start. After doing a couple more rounds of focusing down enemy defenders, I managed to find a brief window of opportunity to take down the enemy Nerubian tower in the north. That being said, the enemy still kept sending waves and waves of pretty strong units. Units which would make a prime target to use the sorceress's cripple ability on. But for that I needed my second sorceress because one can't handle it all alone. Thankfully I figured out a way of saving Private Sorceress and bringing her to the north. I used invisibility on my hero and I brought him next to the sorceress and I used Banish on her. This ability makes her immune to physical damage, and she was able to go through the base to the other side with me. And now I had enough stuff to actually start going after the enemy base. I managed to destroy the second tower and I started to focus down the enemy slaughterhouse. The problem here were the repairing builders, but this is where I came up with something genius. Fake attacking enemy buildings. I used one of my units to attack a building which I don't care about, in this case the enemy altar since the enemy hero was on the island, and it pulled the acolyte repair guy onto it. And the guy kept repairing the altar while we were taking down the slaughterhouse. Once the slaughterhouse came down, the rest of the buildings were quick to follow. In the end, I remembered that the Dragonhawk anti-tower cloud works on the enemy citadel as well, so I was able to clear the last bit with it. And that was it. The longest Warcraft 3 level I have ever played came to an end. I killed 300 units on the level, most of which were abominations, crypt fiends, and gargoyles. 300 units. And all of them with my 20 army supply. After 5 hours of pure fun and excitement, it was time for a little breather. The next mission is a no-build mission, so you know what that means. I use this mission to collect all items that will help me in future missions. I also found some kind of sheep puzzle, but unfortunately that one proved a bit too difficult for me, so I was forced to skip it. I'm sure I wasn't gonna find a whole new level behind that puzzle, which I definitely wouldn't be able to do without building anything, so I guess that's okay.
I've been alone for 10,000 years.
And if you thought we were done with easy missions, you would be wrong. The second mission was so traumatizing I needed 2 easy missions to recover from that. This one needs me to recover a card containing a character completely unimportant in the Warcraft universe.
I've been alone for 10,000 years.
Here I'm fighting Maiev and her goons, and there is a constant stream of units coming down from the Night Elf base. But there is also a constant stream of units coming from my base as well. And then the two of them are supposed to clash together somewhere in the middle. Although I only have control of my heroes, this level lets you hire mercenaries, so I guess you can build something in this mission if you really want to. But this mission isn't too difficult even without the mercenaries. My heroes are extremely powerful by now, and they have strong AoE abilities, so they could do massive damage to enemy attack waves. The only problem with the level is Maiev, who is a real beast here. But not even she can stand up to a bunch of Blood Elf and Naga attack waves, which contains destroyers of universes, Naga Royal Guards. At one point the enemy almost broke my base, but once I acquired enough units to push them out, the last stretch of the level was pretty easy. And that was it. One unimportant character successfully rescued.
You have no power here.
The next mission immediately tosses us into the fire where Illidan is closing a portal and there are demons coming out of the portal trying to stop him. I do have a solid force of Naga and Blood Elf units in the beginning here, but the portal just spits out units like they're freaking grunts and not powerful demons. And add to that the fact that I'm not allowed to lose any units to not lose my damage output, and we have a real doozy right off the bat in this mission. I tasked my regular units to help for as long as I could, but when the stronger demons started coming out, I told them to go to safety, and then I only had my heroes to attack them. But soon, not even that was enough, and the demons started dealing huge damage to my heroes. So I told the Naga lady to go back as well. The only unit I left in was Kale, and the reason for that is his Banish ability. This ability makes units unable to attack, but also completely immune to anything that isn't magic damage. And turns out those ugly demons attacking me very much lack magic damage. And also turns out I can target Illidan with the Banishment as well. And while they are unable to hit my heroes, the demons started hitting my buildings. So I had to bait a couple of attackers so I don't lose my Arcane Vault. And after a few attempts, I managed to barely survive this initial onslaught without anyone dying. 3 more portals to go. In the meantime, I found a base producing creatures so ugly they needed to stealth themselves to not scare people. They wanted me to destroy the orange orc base and I started doing that. I didn't do it because they asked me though. I did it because the base won't be able to send attackers after me anymore. There are 2 more enemy bases on the map, and they send pretty strong attack waves, so I had to make sure I don't lose anyone while they are attacking. The easiest way for that would be to have my heroes at home while they're attacking. But soon it was time to take down another portal, and the one I chose was the upper right one. I was hoping that the cheese I used for the initial portal would easily work, and that I would have no problems dealing with this one. I could not have been more wrong. The units attacking out of this portal are different from the first, and they deal a bunch of magic damage, so there was no way I could use this cheese here. I tried the lower right portal next, which also has different units, but these also do a lot of magic damage. And let's be perfectly clear here, there is no way in hell I can win in a fight with all these attackers with my 36 army supply. So there was only one thing left to do. I had to cheese even harder. And when I said hard, I meant really hard. I tried several things. Using a teleportation staff on Illidan, using a town portal scroll just before he enters the circle to trigger the sequence and teleport back. I tried drinking invulnerability and invisibility potions before entering the circle, but Illidan loses all effects when he enters the circle. I even tried the Naga Cyclone on him, but the spell can't hit friendly units. And the worst thing is that there actually is a cheese that will work perfectly here. However, I don't start the level with the unit required for the cheese. You can use a sorceress's invisibility spell on Illidan, and that will make him invisible for a whole 2 minutes, and the attack waves surprisingly lack anti-invisibility units, so this can easily cheese the mission. But since nothing I had worked, I was forced to slightly take a look at the challenge run rules from a different perspective. While building units or buildings isn't allowed, using items that would make units is perfectly fine. Hell, I beat mission 3 of the Undead campaign strictly because I summoned skeletons with the Book of the Dead. So if creating units from items counts, then wouldn't it be just as legal to create buildings from items as well? Well, as it turns out, my Arcane Vault building houses a very interesting little item called an Ivory Tower. And what this guy does is create a tower at a desired location. It creates a tower, it doesn't build one. It literally says so in the description. By the way, workers have a build menu where they have regular towers to be built, not created. So technically I am allowed to do this. I know it's a technicality, I don't like this any more than you do, but there was no other way. So I bought a bunch of towers and I placed them next to the upper right portal, and I just spawn camped everybody that came out with my upgraded towers. They never stood a chance. I did the same thing with the lower right portal, which ended up being a bit stronger than the first one. However, the last portal was insane, and I knew that very well, so I made even more towers than the first 2 portals to take care of this one. And you know things are critical when the first thing that pops out of the portal are a couple of infernals. To counter this, I brought all my units next to Illidan to serve as a meat shield, or at least a meat buffer. The towers also can't be placed on the brown tile here, and there are very few normal tiles in this portal section, so that made things more difficult as well. But despite all that, and with a billion units taking down what was left of my defenders and towers, I managed to win. And I was finally done with this cursed level.
You may feel less like fighting after I pull off your head.
This mission is a mission that is usually pretty easy and fun. And in this run there have been already too many easy missions, and we are definitely not allowed to have fun either. Seriously, you get a solid number of units in the beginning, and with good micro those will be more than enough to beat this level without ever building anything. And in a run where you have 6 missions, 2 of which are no build missions, I should make the last mission at least a bit more difficult. So I tried to beat this one using only my heroes. I got 4 of them now because I also got a Kama who is stealth while not moving, so he easily destroyed the first gate generator by himself. After that, I used my force of 3 heroes to destroy the enemy base together, which wasn't a big issue. I started with a human and Naga base, and the Naga base has Lady Wash. However, when I went alone with her, she couldn't even destroy the couple of ships in front of the base, so she has to wait for rescue. On the left side, I found a Fountain of Health and I healed up, And then I destroyed a couple of mushroom trees in the middle of the map to be able to reach the right side of the map with Illidan. Illidan is the only guy who can walk on water, so he managed to reach the lady in distress, Wash, and together they regrouped with the rest of the heroes. The objective of the mission is to kill this half-horse dude, but to get to him I have to kill his 2 henchmen to open his doors. The first henchman was behind another line of towers, whose generator I have to take out with catapults, which I don't have. But I can barely hit the generator with Kael as well, so that took care of the base defenders. The rest of the base was easy to take down since most of the defenders went out to try to kill me, but they only found death. The first henchman had a bunch of units next to him, so I baited them bit by bit until they left his side, and then I took them down individually. After the guy was left with almost nothing, I easily took him down. Now it was time for the right side, and this one requires some seafaring, so I could only cross it with my 2 sea heroes. But after rushing to press this random button here, the 2 sides connected and it was time to face the music. There was another base in my way, and after a relatively difficult encounter with its defenders, it was time for the same approach with the henchwoman here. I baited her defenders bit by bit, and in the end she was left with almost nothing, so I took her down. Then the gates opened and it was time to take the horsey down. He is surrounded by a bunch of super powerful units, but I managed to bait most of them to follow me to their execution. And somehow I didn't even have to bait all of them, the horsey decided to take me out himself. Oh well, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. The horsey himself has a few thousand health, deals chaos damage and has a bunch of deadly abilities. Thankfully I have several heroes who can drain him of his mana, and once his mana was down, it was only a battle of attrition, which in the end I managed to win. And that was it. A rather disappointing end to a more difficult than expected campaign. But I managed to do it yet again. What isn't going to be disappointing is the next campaign, the Scourge campaign, which is going to be pure pain for literally most of the missions, starting from freaking mission 1. But that's a problem for next time. Thank you for watching, thank you for sticking until the end. If you liked the video, feel free to give me a thumbs up, leave a comment if you want, I read all of them, and I'll see you in the next challenge.